Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a little bit different style. Matt is not going to be here. We're going to be talking about everything that happened yesterday for Milan's 125th anniversary on Thursday's podcast. But today, I just strictly wanted to talk about what happened yesterday, the game, everything that has transpired after, on, and off the field. So let's get into it. It was our beloved club's 125th anniversary. There was a lot of excitement going around. The kit looked fantastic. A bunch of legends showed up. We were getting a debut from a starlet in our youth team in Mattia Liberali. Alex Jimenez, another Milan Futuro player who has been highly praised, also getting his first start of the season. And yet, everything was overshadowed by all the things off the pitch and, of course, what happened on the pitch. So where to start? How about Paolo Maldini, Boban not showing up for the anniversary, right? We know that they both left the club on bad terms. Maldini obviously getting sacked by Gerry Cardinale, and then Boban also getting sacked under Elliott, but that was for different circumstances. Now, as far as Maldini goes, we knew that there was a strong strain on his relationship between the club management and ownership and himself. So I didn't really expect him to show up. It's still very disappointing that despite the fact that the club's illustrious history and 125th anniversary was met with so much negativity. So Maldini not going there and making an Instagram post, as you could see here, after the fact, talking about the entire history of Daniel Maldini, his father Cesare, all the Maldini family that has gone into blood, sweat, and tears into this club don't decide to show up. It's the club's biggest icon. That's a massive negative and stain regardless of how the night was supposed to go. Now, for the part that everybody has been waiting for, Gerry Cardinale. Now, where to begin, right? I think it has to go all the way back to his decision to sack Maldini in the first place, and that was obviously a very unpopular opinion. He had his reasons. Obviously, Maldini had his reasons for disagreeing with Gerry and the direction of the club. I think everybody is in agreement that Milan were going to head in towards a more positive direction of ambition and spending money under the new ownership after they had just won the Scudetto and made the Champions League multiple years in a row. Instead, you kind of get met with cheaper spending, cutting costs, still cutting corners, something that was happening under Elliott, but was more understandable at the time because the club wasn't doing so well. But with record revenues that the club is boasting about, it hasn't been met with in the transfer market and obviously reflective in the way they spend on salaries. And again, almost every single time we hear from Gerry Cardinale, it's through business conferences and forums and interviews on different medium platforms. None of the stuff that has him addressing upfront and personal with the fans. And when you see an owner as absent as Gerry on the Italian side of things, you can see it reflective in the fans and especially the Ultras. The Ultras having a sign outside after the match, by the way, saying that they're not American, which is clearly a shot at Gerry and everyone else involved. I don't think it had anything to do with me or Matt, but that's besides the point, right? And in his interviews with Bloomberg and many other places, he talks about being near George Steinbrenner and learning about Silvio Berlusconi and all of their ownership styles and how they were upfront and the face of things and going into the dressing and locker rooms to talk to the players, to give them reassurances, none of which Gerry has done. Gerry has decided to take the route of staying behind the scenes, being more of a, figurehead and talking when he deems it fit. None of this facing the media, specifically the Italian media in this instance, right? And then again, you're seeing it not even in interviews with Italian newspapers. Sometimes you'll see Zlatan talk, Furlani, Scaroni, all the guys who do make decisions, but ultimately are not the top dog. That's Gerry Cardinale. And when you don't show up to the 125th anniversary of the club, it's a terrible look on top of all the other things that you have done. So let's get to talk about the match, right? This was everything and pretty much the reason why fans are so upset, because the team has been subpar, the talent has been subpar, the transfer acquisitions have been subpar, you guessed it. So ultimately, when all of these things are happening and the manager is saying sarcastic things like, oh, Milan are fifth in goals conceded when they are a game or two in hand, and they haven't played very well, where they're conceding multiple goals a game against very inferior sides like Cagliari. It's a bad look. Fans don't want to hear that. They're already very frustrated. We all get it. I'm one of them. And it's almost as if Milan fans will always give an ample amount of time for things to turn around. However, there has been zero consistency in this season. Of course, the highs are very high, beating Real Madrid, beating Inter. All those things are great, but does it actually matter when you're sitting in 8th place, 14 points off the top? In Atalanta, another side who doesn't nearly spend as much money as Milan does in terms of salary, and on top of it, transfer wages. And so yeah, we get to the match. Milan once again showing the inability to score. Alvaro Morata, Tammy Abraham, just simply not finishing their chances. And look at the way they approached in buying the striker position, one of which they haven't had a 20-goal league scorer since Zlatan Ibrahimovic himself in 2011-2012. So Milan have gone through over a decade in their illustrious career without a singular player having the capability of scoring 20 goals in a season. That's going to continue when you spend only 13 million on a 31-year-old Alvaro Morata. Even if he was 25, he wasn't going to score 20 in a season. But that's besides the point. Tammy Abraham, a decent striker, but signed on loan with no option to buy right now. So when, again, Milan are cutting corners, you're going to get results like this, and that ultimately costs you points. And when that costs you points, that costs you top four. Top four costs you Champions League, and Champions League then doesn't bring enough money, something of which Gerry Cardinale is very adamant about, because we see making top four is the goal and the objective, many of which Milan fans do not agree with, myself included. And so when you have all of these issues, cutting corners, and not spending big on players, such as the striker position, something George Steinbrenner had done quite often in setting records amounts of money, and the same would go for Silvio Berlusconi. The fact is, Gerry Cardinale doesn't even come close to the highest transfer fee in Milan's history. It always seems like, yeah, we'll go for this player, but there's this cheaper option that we could go with that could get us similar results. Again, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't improve Milan. You can make moves like Christian Pulisic, but that was opportunistic. That wasn't something that is always going to fall into your lap. You have to pay up for players. Napoli does it. Hell, even Atalanta do it. Inter do it. Juve do it, and obviously Juve aren't what they're supposed to be right now, but the ambition is there. Milan doesn't seem like they're interested in going all in for certain players, and again, that costs you more money in the long term, because when you're bringing in players that represent certain risks in the long term, because you don't know if they're proven commodities yet, because they're younger, they cost a lot less, they're coming from leagues that aren't as dominant or proven as Serie A or some of the other top leagues throughout Europe, you're going to have a lot of question marks. And the adaptation time. Do Milan have a lot of adaptation time for a lot of these young players when their goal is to finish top four against a lot of clubs that have solidity and continuity throughout their history and especially recent history? No, that's a bad formula. And again, when the owner isn't facing the music about those questions, about what happened with Paolo Maldini, this is what you get. This is what you ultimately get, and that's the unfortunate part here. And at the end of the day, Milan probably aren't going to be in a great situation in the long term. They're highly likely to miss out on the top four now, barring some fantastic run in the second half of the season. So as of right now, Milan are an embarrassment on the pitch and off the pitch, and I'm not sure that's going to change anytime soon under this current ownership, unless there is a change of ownership. Guys, I appreciate you sticking here with me. This video wasn't too long. We'll get into a lot more of the nuances that go into Milan, Gerry Cardinale's situation when I talk to Matt this coming Wednesday. So again, if you guys like this format, let me know. Comment below in the comment section. Give us a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, if you enjoyed the content. And once again, you could follow all of our socials that are in the description below.